You're listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast, and I'm your host, Abuja based event and wedding photographer Tavishima George Ayede. Today, we're going to have the last installment in the three-part series that we've been going through, and that's based on the article in the Harvard Business Review that was written by Francis X. Frey and Anne Nomis, if I've got the name correctly. And that was the article titled Begin with Trust. Now, in the last episode, we went over briefly what I think was the core of the article, and that's the core drivers of trust, which the authors have here as authenticity. That's the idea that people have to believe that they're interacting with the real you. Logic, that people need to have faith in your judgment and competence, or credibility, as I put it, and then empathy, that they have to feel that you care about them. And then we also looked at some interesting concepts that they came up with, called the trust wobble. That's how these three legs, the three-legged stools, how they interact and what deficits you can end up with if you're weak in one, or rather weaker in one than the others. And then we also looked at the relationship between stress and how that amplifies the breakdown of trust. Now, this episode is going to be even shorter because the final leg in the story arc that they go through is this idea that they titled "In Myself I Trust." Now, the reason why this is important is because, as they put it, the path to empowered leadership doesn't begin when other people trust you. It begins when you trust yourself. Now, if you remember from the two previous episodes before this, I mentioned that the article was built around leadership. However, it is important to the topics that we discuss in this podcast, that is sales and personal selling. And so it also carries over, this idea of "in myself I trust" also carries over into the event and the wedding space. So if you're a wedding planner, or if you're a photographer, or a cake artist, or whatever vendor that you are, maybe even the MC, you're not going to be able to sell convincingly and lead people through the buying process if you do not trust yourself. If you don't think that you are competent and if you are credible to deliver the service that you're putting yourself out for. You shouldn't lack any conviction in your ideas and your abilities. In fact, Grant Cardone puts it more strongly when he says that the first person you have to sell is you have to sell yourself. Because if you don't trust yourself, then no one will. And I think that's a really beautiful and interesting way to bring to an end the arc that we've examined in the three-part series. Once again, the article is titled Begin with Trust, and it's in the May and June 2020 episode of the Harvard Business Review, written by Francis X. Frey and Anne Nomis. So if you've enjoyed the summary of the ideas that they expressed in the article, please by all means go online, run a Google search, and see if you can find the article so that you can read it in depth for yourself. Now, in the next episode, we're going to do a brief summary. I'm going to give different perspectives on some of the ideas that have been expressed here, and then after that I'll bring you up to date with things that I've been up to, particularly the courses that I have been leading with other wedding planners about how to get into the wedding planning space. So see you guys again at the next episode. So if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe. And if you think this is absolutely horrible, then leave a comment or get in touch with me via DM on my Instagram handle, Ayede_photography. That is AYEDE, Alpha Yankee Echo Delta Echo. See you guys on the next episode.